Alright, this is part 2 of a video series I'm making called Satan Invented Evolution. Now, if you haven't watched my first video, you can go back, check it out, and then come back to part 2 right here. Some people have been saying I'm stealing my arguments from Kent Hovind. Well, if you watch Kent Hovind's videos, which I'm going to link to you on the side, he always says he doesn't copyright his material, and if you watch his school classes, which he has online as well, he encourages people to use his arguments. So I'm just doing what he encourages me to do. Let's continue. The Big Bang Theory, which we've been talking about, says that an explosion came from nothing. Or nothing exploded and created everything. Ridiculous, right? So, let's look at some more textbook examples of just how silly the Big Bang Theory is. Alrighty, reading from another textbook. The observable universe could have evolved from an infinitesimal region. That means a dot. It's then tempting to go one step further and speculate that the entire universe evolved from literally nothing. Oh yeah, that's science. Right. The Big Bang idea began with a Belgian astronomer, George Edward Lemaitre. According to Isaac Asimov, Lemaitre conceived this mass to be no more than a few light years in diameter. At the very least, that would be 2 light years, or about 12 trillion miles. By 1965, that figure was reduced to 275 million miles. By 1972 to 71 million miles, by 1974 to 55,000 miles, and by 1983 to a trillionth the diameter of a proton. That infinitesimal region, which was the beginning of everything, was a dot, where all the matter in the universe was crunched into. All the matter in the universe crunched into a dot? Now, the real difference between an evolutionist and a creationist like myself is that in the beginning, I believe God created the heavens and the earth. However, the evolutionist believes in the beginning, a dot created the heavens and the earth. Don't tell me that mine is religious and yours is science. No, 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 no. They're both religious, but mine actually makes sense. I mean, really, where'd your dot come from? Now you're going to say, if you're an evolutionist, where did God come from? Fair question, but that assumes that he had to come from anywhere. You see, nothing can only create nothing, so something always existed. Now, if you're going to say, okay, so your dot always existed, you can say that. I'm just going to say God always existed. There's not a contradiction there. Something always existed, and you believe it's a dot, and I believe it's God. We both believe that something always existed, and we just diverge on what that is. However, it makes a lot of sense that an intelligent creator would create a world with intelligence as opposed to a dot creating anything. I mean, think about it. Why would a dot create an entire universe of stars, galaxies, life? It's ridiculous. Why didn't it just create a few specks of dust that sat there and did nothing forever? Why did it create this, of all things? Why did it create me, of all things? Get what I'm saying? Alright, reading from another textbook, it says that this dot began to spin. I don't know what started to spin it, but it started to spin, and it span faster and faster, and eventually it exploded and created everything. Now, if you still believe this fairy tale, I mean, how could they possibly know that a dot started spinning 16.5 billion years ago? I mean, clearly this is pure imagination, yet it's in a science textbook. Ridiculous, right? So if there is pure imagination sneaking into the textbooks, how can you trust what it says? Let's keep going. The conservation of angular momentum, we're going to talk about it, shows that if something breaks off of a spinning object, it will spin the same way that the object was spinning. Allow me to give you an example. Imagine there's a merry-go-round, and the football players start spinning it with the kids on it. As it starts going faster and faster, the kids start to lose their grip. Now, as you reach a speed of up to 100 miles an hour, the kids will start flying off the merry-go-round. However, you will notice that if the merry-go-round is being spun that way, when the kids fly off, they will also be spinning the direction that the merry-go-round was spinning. The conservation of angular momentum says that when an object breaks off of a spinning object, it will be spinning in the same direction as the object it broke off from. Now, if the universe began as a swirling dot that exploded and created everything, then tell me, why are 3 of our planets in our solar system spinning in the opposite direction of Earth? Or tell me why there are many galaxies that are spinning in the opposite direction of other galaxies. Entire galaxies! Billions of stars spinning in the opposite direction. Well, if the Big Bang Theory is true, that's impossible. So, why are they spinning in the opposite direction? I'll tell you why. God created the heavens and the earth, and the reason he did that was to make the Big Bang Theory look stupid. We are now finished talking about cosmic evolution, which we've proven to be impossible. Next, let's talk about chemical evolution. In laboratory science, it is proven that hydrogen cannot turn into another element, so we already know that chemical evolution is impossible. Next, let's talk about stellar and planetary evolution. The origin of stars and planets. We have never seen a star or a planet form, so it is pure speculation to say that they have evolved. But let's talk about this in more detail. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know how the stars or the planet was formed, because I have no idea. However, if you open up an evolutionary textbook, they will tell you, because they know, of course. They know everything, right? Well, the truth is, no one has ever seen a planet form or a star form, so to say we know how they're made is absolute speculation and imagination. There's no way you can know that, because it's never been observed. But like all things that evolutionists say and do, they think they have it all figured out, right? Well, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know how the planet was formed, because I don't. The Bible says God made the heavens and the earth in 6 days. Well, I don't know how he did it, but hey, Jesus walked on water, he healed the blind, he cured the leopards, so those defy the laws of physics, but hey, the creator of physics certainly is not governed by the rules. He made the rules. He can break them if he wants to. Let's talk about the evidence that shows this planet could not have formed by random chance. If you're an evolutionist, you look up at the heavens, at the billions and trillions of galaxies out there, and you say, well, our Milky Way galaxy has us, we're life, so there must be life out there somewhere. Well, I'm going to show you some evidence that shows, even by just the sheer astronomical amounts of planets out there, random chance still cannot assemble a planet capable of supporting life, and I'll show you why. Scientists have been desperately trying to find water on other planets. However, this search is futile because there is a small zone around every star called the habitable zone, where liquid water is possible. Our Earth happens to be in a perfectly spherical orbit around our star. However, if the Earth was a mere 5% closer to our Sun, we would cook like Venus. Temperatures would rise in a runaway greenhouse effect to over 900 degrees, making liquid water impossible, also thereby rendering life impossible. Now, if our Earth was a few percent away from our Sun, we would be frozen like Mars, also making life impossible. Now, there is only room for one planet in this habitable zone. So that means for every star you see out there, that means only one planet can possibly have liquid water. However, not every star makes this possible, and I'll show you why. We orbit what is called a spectral type G2 dwarf main sequence star. It happens to be larger than 90% of the stars in our own galaxy. If our Sun was smaller, like 90% of the stars in our galaxy, the habitable zone would be smaller, so the Earth would have to be closer to the Sun. However, this would increase gravity, so Earth's orbit around the Sun would sink like Mercury, thereby cooking one side of the Earth and freezing the other, making life impossible. We've already discluded 90% of the stars in our galaxy from being possible for life. Can we make this problem any worse? You bet. Our moon exerts a gravitational pull that regulates Earth's climate by stabilizing its tilt, thereby circulating the warm and cold water of its oceans, without which we'd all be dead. Here's a fun fact. Because the moon can eclipse the sun so perfectly, we can measure the constituency of the sun, the materials and elements on its surface, by observing the pinkish arc of the chromosphere at the moment of totality. The moon fits over the sun so perfectly that it makes it possible to observe the surface of the sun. Otherwise, this would be impossible. If the moon was too big or too small, it would be impossible. Because of our vantage point from the Earth, the moon fits perfectly over the sun, the chances of which are 1 in a trillion. There is a large concentration of black holes, exploding stars, and deadly radiation in the center of our galaxy. This is common because there is a large concentration of stars in the center of our galaxy, making life at the galactic core impossible. Our planet is made of magnesium, iron, and oxygen, all higher elements that cannot be found at the outer reaches of our galaxy. So, there has to be a happy medium. Much like the Sun, there is a habitable zone where intelligent life is possible. Here, in this very small ring, we can find our Earth, the only place in our galaxy where life can be possible, where the higher elements can be found, radiation and exploding stars and black holes are not in abundance. We exist in a universe based on rules. All of these rules have restrictions upon what would make life possible. Now, if any one of these are not met to utter perfection, life would not be plausible on Earth. As we learn more about our planet and this universe, we can begin to compile a list of essentials for life and a habitable planet. As we begin to compile this list, we can realize that the chances of these things happening by chance become increasingly small. all these factors have to be met at one place at one time in the galaxy. In an attempt to estimate the probability of attaining this combination of factors simultaneously, some researchers have developed equations assigning a conservative 1 in 10 value to each factor deemed necessary and essential for life. Every element had to be there at the right time in the right amount in the right way. When you multiply the probabilities, you come to a very shocking number. It's a number like that you need to compare to the billions of stars out there. At face value, these probabilities are speaking. The Earth did not happen by chance. Some people look up at the stars and say, wow, there's so many billions of stars, we must be here by chance. And I look up and say, wow, God's really powerful. It's all belief. God will always give you the chance to disobey and disbelieve. Remember the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the garden? This is the end of part 2. Check the